Welcome again to the Anson's podcast. Delighted to have an external guest again this week in the form of Angi Cooney, who is the owner, founder, director. I'm sure you wouldn't call yourself a CEO of...
Definitely not.
C residential estate agents in Staffordshire and in Ridgely in particular. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
What we'd probably say, if I'm looking at LinkedIn and across different media platforms now, are we quite saying yet you're an estate agency influencer? I think is that not a mantle you want to take on? Or
I don't know whether it's a mantle I want to take on. I think that I'm actually getting that mantle because of all the social media marketing type platforms that we use anyway. And
that digital marketing and estate agencies, that's one of the areas over the last 10 to 15 years where everything's changed in estate agencies.
I think it's actually 5 years.
Really? It's as low as that?
And even probably later than that. It's, if you're not on social media, you're losing a market share that you didn't even know would have existed, because of course that now is years ago, when you and I were buying houses, it was newspapers. You looked in the newspaper. You don't have newspapers to look for houses now. So, of course, you've got your property portals, which is one thing. Yeah. But to get eyes, you get on social media platforms.
And the property portals, which presumably are the likes of Rightmoves and...
On the market
and that sort of stuff, albeit quite a crude instrument in terms of finding the house that you would want. I mean, your typical purchaser is going to struggle to have that as their main. If they were to come to you and that was how they came to you, do they end up buying the house that they saw on Rightmove?
Not necessarily. The thing is with Rightmove, obviously it's the biggest portal there is, and people are that used to. Even if you say to somebody, where have you seen your property? They'll always say Rightmove, and it could be one of the other two. So you've just got to go over you've got to have all your bases covered as an agent nowadays. And is it crude? It is, but it's a bit like the old Auto Trader.
Yeah.
Auto Trader, you used to go in the Auto Trader and find all your cars there. Now, same with property, you go Auto Trader. Yeah. Auto Trader's got a platform.
There's a car supermarket, all of that sort of stuff.
All of that.
And then some of that content creation you have to do around actually when you're putting a house on the market itself, presumably your agents become sort of photography experts and...
Yeah, but I think that we're always...
You're always doing that anyway.
I think it's more about getting awareness. It's brand awareness out there. So you need to be relevant. You need to give information. You need to be informative. It's a bit like you with this. You inform people. Yeah. And that's exactly what I try to do. So it's not just about putting houses on, because if you're just there putting houses and houses and houses, people will just flick through. They're not bothered. If you've got something to say, interest rates rise or the fact of what's house prices doing, from 2022 to 2024, you just give people information and snippets of it.
Things that I've noticed you do, and I thought that was quite good, which is there's quite a lot of collaboration with, I guess some of them in different parts of the country, but quite a lot of collaboration with other agents, and almost a sort of not seen as competition, giving sort of opinions and advice to the industry generally.
Because I think that you should, because I think that the one thing that it's taught me is the fact that you're not an island, you're not on your own. It sounds very corny. This little agent in Ridgely in Staffordshire is also all of a sudden on a big stage. Yeah. And you need to collaborate with people because you don't know it all, but then you can impart wisdom to them as well, and you get it back in bucket loads. I'm part of something called Agents Giving, which is... where anybody in any type of the property industry, whichever area you're in, you can get a mentor. So it doesn't cost you anything. I'm a mentor for people. And so if they're, for example, starting out or whatever it might be, it's a great collaboration. And that's a great thing about the industry that I'm in.
And then I think, and it can be fulfilling personally to be a mentor to somebody. And also having a mentor who is outside of your own workplace, because I guess when you're within your own workplace, you're always a little bit, I don't want to say that I'm feeling vulnerable about this or I lack confidence in this area. to the person who is, perhaps deciding what you get paid or, doing your appraisal. Whilst you would want to have that relationship with your team, it can be easier sometimes to have those discussions with somebody externally from your other organisation.
100%. And asking questions that you're not going to get ridiculed for. There's a lot of WhatsApp groups, obviously, and I don't know whether you've got something similar in the world of law, but we've got sort of Women in Agency, which is like a platform for women in agency, obviously, talking about the issues that they have there. There's lots of different things, and the estate agents and the property industry have grabbed it and just gone with it. And so there's so many bits of information that you can get from peers. It's just great.
Well, I mean, there's certainly the progressive parts of that industry. I mean, lawyers, I'd probably say that there is sometimes a bit more of an old-fashioned view on lawyers. I mean, I guess I haven't had a lawyer from an external firm on this podcast yet, and it's something that I should do, really. But I think that lawyers, and we'll come on to this in different contexts in a second, but probably aren't as collaborative as they could and should be when it comes to marketing their businesses and working alongside it. Is that there are exceptions to that, and I know that the Birmingham Law site is pretty good at sort of networking and around.
But I mean, I remember seeing a big, huge Anson's board just outside of Cannock. That was quite an unusual step to take as well. Yeah,
so it's funny, I was discussing that earlier, but we have stopped doing that sort of thing because we figured after a time we had it as on the Tip Island in
That's right,
in Cannock, and actually over a period of time we decided that probably wasn't the best use of bang for our buck anymore, that we would do little bits of that, but actually doing things like sort of podcasting, sort of networking events, we felt that we would get a lot more use out of that, and also have sometimes, if you do something like a podcast, you gain people can see what your personality is like. Law is people's business just as much as anything else, and there's that thing that people buy services of people, and I think that you're always going to struggle to do that. We have with the big.
But I have a different opinion, you see, because I think you don't know where your clients are going to come from. It's not business to business, and so it depends on where you are in the food chain. From my point of view, I cannot tell you where any particular group of people find out about us. As you know, we sponsor anything going.
Yep.
We've sponsored all different types of things, sponsor kickboxing guy and sponsor people who are at school. There's loads of things.
You've got a cultural offer. Did I say you've done some stuff around the Lichfield Festival before and some bits around that?
Yeah. I've also done sponsoring Santa at Christmas with his float, and had all loads of boards on there. Right. I mean, what a fantastic... It's not going to sell me houses, but what it will do is get my name in...
Brand awareness and being involved in stuff. And again, that's what I'm saying. I think that some of that stuff, being involved in a community event, people can see that you are part of the local community, that you're supporting community events, and will want to use you. I don't think it is just because they see the name and it's the name recognition. I think it's because they sort of see somebody getting involved in a local community activity, and then
I think that there's that much. But then it's all about brand awareness. It's got to be about the brand. So really wearing sweatshirts, going out with the cars, things like that. Because when they're going to get the house valued, they will go for 3 people. It's just what people do. Okay, and I just want to make sure that we are one of those 3.
Give us that opportunity to pitch.
Because it's a bit like with Anson's, when you're asked to quote for a job, they'll pick 2 or 3 solicitors, and then it depends on how comfortable they feel. And it's as basic as that. We just want to have the opportunity to go through the door.
Where are we with, I guess this question is slightly multi-layered, but the property market at the moment, I guess I'm talking locally stroke regional rather than the national market. I'm not so London's completely different, right? But what stage of perhaps there's not a stage anymore. Where are we?
There is a stage. I mean, I get a lot of stats. I buy statistics from a guy called Christopher Watkin, who is an industry guru, really, and he'll sit there and drill down statistics so that I can stand on my social media platforms and tell people that, for example, 21.4% of Rugeley house prices we've got more houses coming on, and the house prices have just shot up.
Yeah.
There's lots of statistics that you can get from that.
Yeah.
Rugeley itself is like a little nucleus, isn't it? I always think it's a bit like when we took the power station, we never got any cloudy rain because, of course, we were...
Microclimate.
The microclimate.
I did have 7 toes, but yes,
But
there was a benefit for climate-wise.
You and me both. However, obviously, we are closely aligned with Cannock.
Yes.
But Cannock and Rugeley Market are completely different, really. They call me the West Midlands. I wouldn't call myself the West Midlands when you're looking on a graph.
Yes.
But no one else can put us anywhere else because we're Staffordshire. But actually, Staffordshire go Stoke-on-Trent, they're never there. Rugeley itself, you're talking about that. The market is all right. The market is and has been and will be consistent. We consistently sell houses, obviously we're the biggest agent anyway, but as long as you do what you're doing in a consistent way, in a consistent manner, and people know exactly what they can expect from you, you will be successful and sell.
I think there is a bit of that in both market towns like Rugeley and in Cannock, where we've got an office, whereby you can still, as an ordinary working person, afford to buy a house.
Of course.
That is a lot more difficult without sort of family money, I would say, in a market like Lichfield, where and actually probably one of the things that helps the Rugeley market is quite a bit of sort of migration from Lichfield into Rugeley, or do you not see that so much?
No, I don't see that. I think when the new houses are built, probably yes. When they built Hawksyard, absolutely. We got people that think, well, it's a hop and a skip and a jump to Lichfield. We may as well go there as opposed to Lichfield itself. In terms of the money, actually, the Rugeley first-time buyers, I've got some cash behind them. It's not all parents' money. It's more borrowed money towards Lichfield, Sutton Coldfield, those type of areas.
Yeah, they've got some money towards that deposit, which just makes the rate and everything else. You're pretty positive on your local market and don't see that there's too much of a down cycle currently.
No, and if you look at the average house price in Rugeley, and I'm sorry, I have rate figures, but I can't read it.
Don't worry about it.
Just say 308,000 is sort of the average house now. Well, if you think about the stamp duty changes, everyone's talking, they're all talking it down, aren't they? Stamp duty change, I'm about to record something about, actually, if you look at our average house price, it's not going to affect you anyway. So we just carry on.
Because it's below the limit.
And in fact, we've sold 18 houses so far in February. And when you actually look at what's sold, it's all first-time buyer stuff. It's bizarre.
Is there many in your market? Is there any sort of turn to sort of apartments or not really? It's still houses.
People keep buying. The builders keep throwing because their planners want them to. Let's build apartments. Yeah. That's what they want. No, they don't. They want bungalows. They want houses. They want food.
I had heard that there is a sort of a dearth of bungalows compared to the demand. Because I guess if you're over 60 and I'm not trying to dig there, but and you're planning for the future, and there might be mobility issues there. A bungalow, everything being on one floor, is a benefit, right?
See, bungalows a few years ago, everyone was going off to Spain and France, and this is a few years ago. So the bungalows, we couldn't give them away. Yeah, it's changed again now.
So when the Brexit happened, presumably that was a factor. Then some people then got a bit more. The apartment in Spain or the villa in Spain was being replaced by a bungalow in Rugeley.
Yep.
Again, you learn something new.
I think that it's like anything. The housing market goes through peaks and troughs. Yeah. So we will see, obviously, we sold the houses in February. January, we had a stonking month and it was all over, but it was all the higher price ones. Yeah. But it always does, like a cycle, all the time.
But are those cycle peaks any different to what they've always been?
No.
It's not an accelerated period from boom to bust, no?
No.
And you just have to keep on doing what you're doing.
Correct.
And trading through the more tricky times, knowing hopefully that the better times aren't that far away, I guess.
Because our tricky times, as I'm sitting here talking to a law firm, is when the conveyancing process, which is clogged to death, comes in. That's where our frustration goes.
Well, I mean, I would know this from my own experience. And I've got the advantage when I've bought houses of being able to walk downstairs to the people who are doing the conveyance to speak to them. But certainly, I bought my first house in 2008. It took me a long time to decide to move out of home. My wife, she wasn't my wife then, wasn't very happy about that, but there you go. I reckon it was about 6 weeks. 2000.
But then that's because it was you.
All right, but even then, I still say you could have done it. You could. It's got longer as the time has gone on.
Well, let me tell you, I was on another podcast last week, and I talked about the same thing. The problem you've got when I first started out in agency, which is quite a while ago, the average house sale was 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes 8 to 12, but as a rule, 4 to 6. Now, with all the technology and all these things that are supposed to make our jobs a lot easier, we're talking 16, 20, 24 weeks. It's obscene.
Yeah, I mean, there's no arguing that. I mean, that's what I would have. If you'd have asked me to guess, I would have said minimum 4 months. I mean, there are exceptions to that, but for the most part, it's all. We are certainly saying to clients.
You can swallow 16 weeks.
Yes, it's when it turns into the 4 to 6 months.
But when we're 6 months, if not longer. And the issue I have with that is the fact that everything we do is free up until the day it sells.
Yes.
So there's an industry, obviously, that's about changing culture and all of that. That's the whole
true in our game too, by the way. I mean, most lawyers, they will have to charge for the expenses of
yeah, but you charge.
We charge.
I know, but you charge. We charge nothing.
Yes, we don't charge for anything that goes in our own pockets, of course. If we're unless a sale is aborted, but the charges that we will impose up front will be to do with searches and to do with those sorts of costs. And whilst that is money, but that is not sort of law firms' money.
I'm exploring the reservation fee option at the minute.
Yeah.
Where the buyer and the seller both commit. Because I think once you've got a commitment, there's a bit more a bit more commitment.
What would you then put down to? Why is it taking longer?
Because I think you've got factory lawyers now.
Yeah.
So you haven't got, for example, I can pick up the phone to David and
That's David Alexander from our Lichfield office.
Lichfield office, speak to him, and he will answer the phone. I've got his direct line, and I speak to him, and I ask for updates, whatever it might be. And we work collaboratively, and that's a great thing about working with local solicitors. The fact is they know the area, then they'll have done things before. And I'll give you a little example on that Hawkshire that we've touched on earlier, which is the modern estate. There were parts of that even now the Section 106s aren't quite up to date. The roads, blah-de-blah.
Aren't adopted. And
as each one of those have gone along, and I find one, because obviously we're now 8 years into them, 8-10 years. I've bought them. So if for example, David says to me, right, Ange, there's a section here, you've sold such and such Langley Way, I can go, it's all right, David, I've actually bought that. So we talk and we work it through. Go back to your original question, why do I think it's longer? Because I think that there's a factory mentality of some solicitor law firms where somebody opens the post and stamps it. It goes up to somebody else's desk who sits there maybe a week or so before they look at it. And then you've got all these factory conveyancers.
And everyone's only doing one bit of the process.
Everybody's doing one part, and then the final part, they go and get it signed off by a conveyancer.
Yeah.
But if it is just...
And of course, the frustration with some of that will be that inevitably, especially when we have a chain of houses being sold, any law firm can only move as quickly as the slowest part of the process.
That's it.
And so if one part of that process is slowed down, then
I'll tell you
all of it slows down.
I'll tell you another one. On the way here, I was looking at, I was getting messages from this chap. I've got 3 in a chain: a first-time buyer, the guy in the middle, buying the house. Right, that's it, 3. This guy at the top has already bought a house. The first-time buyer hasn't got a house to sell. Person in the middle. My 2, which is my first-time buyer, and my seller, are ready. Their local search is due back on the 3rd of March. The top one, the guy, unfortunately, has used a conveyancing factory, as I call them. Yeah. The conveyancing factory is still in new business. So they haven't even come out of new business, and we are now 4 weeks in, and his buyer will be ready in a week or so's time
to buy it.
And I'm thinking, well, you haven't even sent a draft contract out. It's things like that I think are so radically, and every conveyancer I meet, and I'm not trying to just tar everybody with the same brush, I'm not, because when you talk to them individually, they're great. But the problem is you've all got different processes. You've all got different things that your own firm, your
well, it's our workflow is the language that's being used in legal processes these days, and trying to adopt a workflow that would. Now, I guess when I say that, I'm mindful that you're thinking workflow. That sounds a bit like a factory to me.
Not really, because if you think about it, we all do anti-money laundering, don't we? All
Yes.
of us. So I'm on the Guild Verify 365.
Yes.
Spoke to a solicitor today. A guy, I've sold a house at auction. They said to my vendor, who's like 80, and I'm selling it on behalf of his aunt, who's 90-something, and she's in a home. And they're saying, but we want them to do the verification, online verification.
No chance.
And I went, listen, they can come into he can come into my office. In fact, I'm meeting him this afternoon. He can do the Verify 365 with me. No, we want it done on ours. Why? Why?
I mean, the rules say that you've got to verify the ID. They don't specify that you've got to use an app to do that. So, I mean, when we talk about from about 2004 onwards, in this country, there was a piece of legislation, anti-money laundering legislation. It's been developed since then, which requires us literally, and then it's been expanded out to the estate agents, literally on pain of people being struck off and criminal fines.
I'm not saying... Yeah,
no.
When all of us in the chain, when every single person, just say you've got a first-time buyer at the bottom, has to verify all their ID. Where's all your money coming
Sensible flexibility is what you need.
You get to the solicitor, that person's got to go through exactly the same thing again. And then it's all up the chain, isn't it? We're all asking for the same bit.
Yeah. And well, no, quite. And being able to, I think that is a tweak that could be made industry-wide, whereby there's one part of the anti-money laundering that is being done, and then that, an estate agent and a lawyer doesn't have to do it separately. There could be some of that could also be done. I mean, I know it's one of the frustrations of clients and estate agents around the sort of proof of funds and the evidence we're expected as lawyers to be able to demonstrate to the authorities, actually.
So then you look at that. So I have obviously got Verify 365, so I understand, and I also need to check if they own the house.
Yeah.
I've also got to check that they're on the...
they're not on the political connected
list,
register.
all of that thing, right? But then again, the same thing. We're all paying for the same. I'm paying for a platform, so then you're paying for a platform.
We've got a platform, sure.
And everybody else involved in this transaction is on a platform. What the hell is wrong with this country? Good God, somebody needs to grab it and just shake it all up, because there are elements to it that are failing the clients.
No, I 100% can see that duplicating. I mean, I think we're currently obliged to do that, but the duplication of the AML is one of the sources of friction that's been introduced into the system over the last 20 years.
I don't know whether I actually don't mind doing that, because I think actually I should know where the money's coming from. I should know, but I'm
No, but it's the process that I'm not saying that. I think it's absolutely fine. The legislation is here to stay, whether we like it or we don't like it anyway. But trying to work more collaboratively or not repeat the same thing so many times. One of the things that we're trying to adapt with our own system is to make sure that we're not, because we appreciate that it's frustrating, that we're not asking the client the same question 6 times in 7 different ways.
Getting back to that, do you know what drives me mad is when you get the conveyancer will say, right, fill out your property information form, fixtures and fittings, all of that.
Yes.
Then it gets scanned over, whatever you do, DX, if they still use DX, to the lawyer, the next one up, who hasn't even looked at it. So then they ask the questions all over again, and you think, but you've already got it all. And that's what's frustrating. Yeah. Get a good bloody conveyancer who will look at all the pack, not just send it out to, Wendy from accounts, who's going to sit and look at it and stamp it. Somebody called Wendy from accounts, but
we've not got a Wendy from accounts. Is Wendy like a Karen type name?
You know what I'm saying?
No.
I just think
what you're saying is actually it isn't about IT or processes really, or workflows, or even, dare I say, AI. It's what you're saying is actually what it really needs is almost a sort of more of an artisan approach, whereby the conveyancer is the craftsman who is going to do most of the process and
But I can understand if you look at the factory conveyancers or the factory
processes, yeah.
right, the processes of information. In theory, that's great, isn't it? In theory, you think that would probably work. In practice, it doesn't, because you've got one conveyancer probably being fed by 20 processors who all put the file on your desk, and you want to go home. So there's an awful lot to get through.
Yeah.
So then you've got people like me who are saying, yeah, I know, but you've got all that information. But years ago, you'd have David. I mean, I use David Alexander. You get David Alexander, who would sit there, gets all the file together, looks at it all, dictates, speaks to a secretary, whatever it might be. Job done.
No, listen, that is broadly speaking, our approach to it is to have a process that's driven by lawyers, driven by conveyancers who are qualified, who take control of their files. And I won't say that our systems are perfect, and there'll be people watching this who things have taken a while to get through, and obviously we know that we definitely can do better at that, and we want to drive things forward with our workflows so that, whilst recognising that you want to have one person who's in control and taking responsibility for the whole case, I think you're right that that's really important, and that the workflows that we are developing are ensuring that we're not asking for the same information twice, that we're delivering information and advice to clients that they can comprehend on first read, not needing us to then have to have a telephone call with them to explain it again. That said, we need to be the sort of firm that is happy to have that telephone conversation or that face-to-face meeting so that the client can understand what they're doing, because it will be the biggest purchase that you're making of your life, certainly in monetary terms. And it is important that you feel like you are getting that service. But I can see how people within the industry, both from your end and actually the clients themselves, can get frustrated by the conveyancing process.
But if you think about it, as agents, we go out into their home, they invite us in, they have no idea who we are, really.
Yes.
Obviously, they've seen you on social media if they follow you, but you sit there and then you win their trust, and then you gain their trust, you sell their house, and you hold their hand. And it's bloody Wild West out there as to who you go to.
Yeah.
Because yes, you quite rightly said, you can only act as fast as your slowest person in that chain.
Yeah.
But I think communication is absolutely the right thing to do. And I think conveyancers, maybe through time, I have no idea, and don't want to be shot there, but they haven't got the time that we would have.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there probably is, and what could be said is that since the advent of, and I know they've been here a while, so I'm not trying to sound like old-fashioned here, but since weirdly increasing communication has probably in and of itself slowed things down, because on one level the actually, if we slowed some of the communication and communication channels down, I do wonder sometimes if that might actually speed the processes up. Are there lots of people in law firms involved in the conveyancing process, answering queries, speaking to someone, can you chase this, can you chase that?
And you're talking to agents, and then the clients will turn to the agent. I had a client today who rang and spoke to the team. They're completing next Friday. So you've got 3 again in a chain, all local solicitors, all great people. And the buyer at the bottom said, well, I'm moving on the 28th. So Anna, who is me, said, well, yeah, I'm looking at all the notes. She went, well, you're the estate agent. You tell me if I'm moving in. Quite rightly went, it's not up to us to dictate it. I can tell you what the solicitors are saying.
Where do you stand on those acts that in effect allow clients and estate agents into the file? That creates more problems than it solves, right?
We've got a CRM, which is a system that we can do that, where the vendors or buyers can go in. I turn it off. I don't want it. I don't want them looking. That works. I remember about 2 years ago, do you remember? I can't remember the law firm, and you might remember. They had an outage.
Yes. Yeah. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, it wasn't the law firm that had the outage. It was a piece of case management software, and lots of law firms had it, including one of the big...
It was the big one.
Conveyancing one, yeah.
And at that time, I was on a platform with estate agents and conveyancers talking about this very subject. And I'd got a guy and he was saying, one of my buyers, and he was going, oh, my app's fantastic. I can tell you that. My searches were ordered on this and they're back and this, that. Then it collapsed. Okay. Yeah. And he didn't have any communication for 2 weeks. So all he was doing is ringing me. Then I could tell all the chain. And I'm not into, yes, technology has its place. Yeah. Do I think it has I think the right technology is the right thing.
But actually,
allowing them in, too much knowledge.
I read something recently, I think, and it was a Elon Musk quote, but I'm not political or anything. Don't get me wrong, I stay clear of all of that stuff. But and he was saying that lots of businesses want to digitize and automate, but if you haven't got your system right, all you're really doing is automating chaos. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
In the estate agency world, they call it prop tech, property technology.
Right.
And my gosh, everywhere you go, there's so much property technology out there. So then what you have to do is sort of sit there, particularly as a business owner, and go, this is so much white noise now. I've got to stop, get rid of the lot, and then what do I really want? And I've said this before, my thing is I always point north. What is best for the client?
Yeah.
So all of these things, and then I stop it and I go, what's best for the client? What will that bring to an experience? And I think that there's too much technology on all sorts of things, and there's too much of it. So I think
it's a sort of back to basics approach, really.
But I always do back to basics, and you always need to do that anyway during, whether it's even, I call it trimming off the fat. So, for example, when the housing market goes a bit odd and a bit strange and we can't get transactions through, of course, we've still got bills going out. So you have to go back to basics and look at what fat you've accumulated.
Well, and stuff like outages like that probably just reveals just how dependent we are on it. And actually, ultimately, that even the best of systems can fail, right? Which is a challenge for all of us. So one of the topics that we've always mentioned, so I think I'm going to anticipate what you're going to say here. We've discussed it as it applies to the law. To what extent is AI coming into estate agents?
AI is here anyway. I don't write a set of details anymore.
Okay.
I just plonk it into a platform and just say, can you create or can you tell me some content tell me all about Rugeley in Staffordshire, for example. Yeah. And then it will pull up all these stats from everywhere. And the stats and
usually with the Z spelling, if it's
of course American, yeah. But I like AI. I actually really like it. I think it's quite scary when there's an avatar of me.
Oh, blooming hell!
And I went to this an industry event, and they did an avatar, and I was literally just talking for about a minute, and then they've regurgitated. I sent them a set of my details, and then you get a little. There's the house, and then you've got like a little thing of me.
Mini me coming up like an animation.
And talking about it. The only reason I knew it wasn't me is because the pronunciation was it was too good.
Yeah.
And it sort of said bath instead of bath.
Yeah.
But that will change. I mean, it's very scary. I like it. I like technology.
But it's in the right, it's using it in the right parts of the process.
Correct. You've got to use it in the right part.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, as it stands in a lot of these ways, again, a quote the other day that said, artificial intelligence at the moment is high on the artificial and low on the intelligence. And I think it can certainly be helpful to help you.
I think it helps you do responses to questions or responses to a complaint. Not that I get many, but you do get them. And as I would use it, and I'll use that and make it sound more professional.
And also perhaps help you get, do some of what you might call the donkey work of a reply done, even though, I mean, you will always with AI, if you're using AI to help you compose emails or correspondence, you can use it, but there's no excuse then to not then read that.
You've got to fact check it.
And be careful with it. And I would say from a lawyer's perspective, actually, we've been using, let's just be clear, template documents, template conveyancing TP1s and conveyancing contracts for years. We've always, at one point, just handwrite in some of the details on a standard form contract. And there is an element that AI is almost a more sophisticated version of that. But when you do use it, you cannot, there's absolutely no excuse for the laziness of them not properly fact-checking, reading and tweaking what it said.
But when you've got an AI newsletter, for example, because it's got the Z's in it and it's got the wrong spelling, you think that's lazy. Why why send that out there?
I mean, the technology will come. If I have ever, and when I have experimented with internally sending an email within Anson's, everyone can tell that I'm a bit of a sort of, I had a bit of training once from somebody around sort of quite short, sort of, I like a short, punchy sentence. And AI will always thank them for their day and be overly grateful for the email that's been received and all of that sort of stuff. And that's not my style. So I think that anyone in my organisation, when I have experimented a couple of times internally sending something out, knows in a heartbeat that I haven't written that email. I guess over time the technology will be such that it can learn your own style. Actually,
you'd take that out, wouldn't you? I mean, I try and do mine where I've got a professional. I've got the professional AI platform, so it's learning the way that I not speak, because I'm not doing a
type.
So it's sort of learning my little bits. I mean, I'll tell you what's great. AI is great for photography.
Oh, go on.
Because I can take a photograph on my mobile phone, upload it to a platform that I use, and then it will come back and they'll digitally enhance it. They'll remove your phones now, don't they? They remove objects if you don't want them in, and just has a better version, a more polished version of the house.
So, well, if you were to go into most people's houses, the conservatory will look lovely, but will have the closed. Put someone's pants drying on the dryer, and then I guess AI. You don't need to move that, presumably. AI can.
But even on my phone, I've got a Samsung and it's a Galaxy one, and I will take a photograph. I went to India a few years ago, Taj Mahal, and there was loads and loads of people, and I physically got rid of all the people, so it just looks like there's me and my husband at the Taj Mahal.
That's sort of. Wasn't that a famous Princess Diana photograph?
It was, obviously.
Did you? But it was you and your husband.
Me
that was famously. It was Princess Diana sat in front of the Taj Mahal.
It was
on her own. Without Charles.
Yeah. AI is great, and it's got a place. You've got to use it sensibly.
Okay. Oh no, that is interesting, because I almost thought you were going to say. You in certain departments and areas of what you do, you utilise it.
There's another one. We've got something called ChatGPT.
Yes.
Sorry, not ChatGPT. Video prompt. So what I do, I can type a script. Put it onto it, and then I will have the camera there. And I'll read the script, and a bit like a teleprompter. Yeah. So we now deliver that using the teleprompter.
So if I hear you on one of those videos doing the local market stats,
if I'm standing there looking at the camera, I've got the I've put everything in, so I've not just like plonked it out there. Everything's in there, and then you'll just see me looking like I'm talking to you, and actually what I'm doing is doing my teleprompter. I'm reading it.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, I mean, as ever with these things, the technology is changing all the time, and I think your approach to it is right, that you use it where you can get the benefit.
Absolutely.
But then don't become a slave to it, because I think we would probably both agree that as parts of the conveyancing process, strangely, have almost been slowed down.
They have.
By technology.
100%.
And by people not sort of properly engaging in the process and ensuring that they and the clients understand.
But I think if you can get a brand new home, and I know that you do, if you can get brand new homes through within 4 to 6 weeks, that's because everybody's on the ball, you've got all your inquiries through, then surely that should be the same for everybody.
I take this point at yes, you're right. And some of that is because you know that the conveyancers involved will know the title, will have a certain number of standard inquiries and replies that are sort of pre-done. And your point is that actually, surely, if you're a local estate agent and there's the Hawkshire estate, which you referred to earlier, which I know where that is on the site of the former Powers, next to Leal Colliery, where Leal Colliery was originally. You're right. Surely, if you've done 20 different houses on there, it's the same as when you're acting for a developer and you're selling.
Correct.
20 different houses.
But if you look at, we all know that we're in a mining town.
Yeah.
And why have I got solicitors not even ordering mining searches to write at the end? And you think, hang on a minute, this is like basic stuff here.
Yeah.
Because actually, if they'd have read what I've provided, it shows all of that.
Yeah, and we know, and actually, strangely, knowing sometimes the banks actually weirdly will insist on mining searches if it's in one area, even though local knowledge would say, well, actually, there's not going to be any mine shafts there.
It's like flood defence, isn't it? The flood defence thing drives me mad. Because you got a property, we're going to keep going back to Hawkshire, but it's because we're talking about it.
No, go on.
I've got a first floor apartment,
yeah,
and it said it was a flood risk. Now, from what?
Yeah, because there's not a river there, is there?
Where's the river?
Yeah.
It's a canal. Canals don't flood.
Yeah.
Where's the flood going to come from?
And that is where algorithms and computer programs somewhere are telling somebody that it's a flood risk, even though actually there's going to have to be something that's going to create that in a flat piece of land nowhere near.
But then if you've got a conveyancer that knows the area, then they'll know the area, won't they? And so they can sit and take a sensible approach to it.
I understand. What would you say the future of a estate agency is? Well, if we're sort of looking at a sort of 10 to 20-year horizon, is there going to be such things? Is there going to be less sort of on-the-ground presence, or perhaps?
So have you seen these self-employed models? So there's self-employed agents.
Where they haven't got a shop or that.
No high street, so they may align themselves with a platform.
Yeah.
Excuse me, a platform, a bit like Purple Bricks, where they're all self.
I'm aware of Purple Bricks.
Yeah. He nearly had a purple what?
No.
So they've got like they're self-employed models to a model, right? Yeah. So they're there, but I tell you now, it takes an awful lot of time to be recognised as a brand, because what they've got to do is be the brand. Now, doing that and as an individual person, it's quite a hard thing to do over time.
Especially when you're putting yourself behind the Purple Bricks name or whatever else it might be.
Do I think there's a need for agents? Absolutely. Will there be high street agents? I actually think it'll do reverse back, and I think it'll go back to high street traditional agents.
Do you think the platform model is stalling even as it stands?
I think some platform models are amazing, but those agents, and there is only a certain percentage of some of them I know, and they're exceptional agents, but they'll only be as big as what they can do.
So getting their own brand out there and being able to properly get to know their local market and build reputation is the key.
Because otherwise you get that big, you have to employ people, you have to get an office. What's happening is there's an awful lot of these models that are doing pyramid selling, as I call it.
Yeah.
And they hate me saying that, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah.
So you've got Angi Cooney C-Res, and I want to employ, X, Y, Z, and X, Y, Z are going to come in as a self-employed model with me. And then I get a percentage of theirs, and then whatever they bring in, I get a percentage of that. It's that, isn't it? It's the funnel.
And it makes it all about money and the commission, which, of course, is clearly important to every business. It's the most important thing in some respects.
But agents are very, every agent, in fact, I'd say 90% really, that I ever come across don't do it for the money. They do it because they really love what they do. It's a great job. Yeah. It's the best job. But there is an element of agents who don't give a toss, and we all know who they are.
Yeah, we've often said that slightly begrudgingly at the end of a conveyancing process that when they sell, the client seems unfairly grateful to the agent and not grateful enough to us, but there you go.
I get that, but there's also the side of the self-employed agents are the really good agents, in my opinion. Yeah. Most of them are. There are some high street agents, as we know, who are not so good, who think that their job is just to, put the house on Rightmove, sell it, and then wait for the solicitors to all do their job. In a perfect world, yeah. But then you have to have people behind it. And I
think that must be the case, and I think it does come down to people want to buy services, professional services, estate agency services. I'm not saying that estate agency service isn't a professional service.
No, it is a professional.
I am saying that,
but if you look at agents as a professional, and even though I'm residential, it's still very personal. The people in my team are very personal, so the clients will have their mobile numbers. So in effect, they are their own self-employed agents as well, aren't they?
They're creating those. They've got their own relationships with the clients.
We are there 24/7, and you'll know that. from when we dealt with it. You know, you can send a WhatsApp or whatever, and you will get a response.
Yes, I will, and a call and a further WhatsApp if I don't respond within the required time period.
But a solicitor is not. It's not your
nature sometimes. Yeah, no. I mean, I think that's right. I think there is bits of the legal profession whereby you sit behind your brass plaque outside a sort of Georgian building, and
aren't we important?
I think that lawyers can be like that. I think that the type of law firm that I'm trying to, and Anson's are trying to build, isn't like that. That we are trying to give an opportunity for people to have good professional careers, have those relationships like your team does with clients, really feel that they are making a difference, and to give those opportunities, you know, in the local communities in which we practice.
I will say conveyancers have probably got it quite hard because you've got an agent who's there saying, Mrs. Vendor, Mrs. Seller, Mrs. Buyer, how high do you want me to jump to get this over for you? Yeah. And I do see this side of it. Yeah. And then you've got the lawyer going, well, actually, we've got this and this to do, and they're not quite as communicative. You've got us doing overkill, and then you've got yourselves who aren't doing overkill.
I mean, by the way, I don't think it's fair to say that lawyers aren't doing overkill or who aren't trying to push things forward. I would like to think, and I know that we are. I think there are different factors. I think there is a slowest moving part of the process that's an issue. I think there is sort of there is something around workflow that could be addressed, and that might be simplifying it.
I think you've misunderstood what I meant there.
I wasn't being too defensive. Perhaps I did sound defensive.
But we are there doing the how high do you want me to jump, and then you've got. Obviously, it's a law firm. It's a big thing. You know, you've got to. This is their biggest purchase. You need to be very. There are certain rules and things that you got to do. It's communication, I think, because the communication they get verbally from the agent is very different to what you get from the conveyancer. And maybe in your workflow, right? You have.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to stop using that. You're making me feel guilty for saying the word
2 hours. So maybe a period of time on a Wednesday, or whatever it might be, the conveyancer, picks the phone up. Because I've got clients, you know, we've got 70 hours on the market at the minute. We've got 70 in our sold pot, right? Yeah. So there's 210 people. But we will talk to them. So maybe it should be, this is just your weekly call. Don't hide behind an email or WhatsApp or whatever flipping thing that they want to go.
Whatever distance you create.
What you do is you pick up the phone. Just want to check in on you, let you know what I'm doing. That's it.
And then perhaps sometimes that will stop them being chased, of course.
And then it all just diffuses down because they think, actually, somebody's got my back.
Yeah, and they're proactively pulling.
And the conveyancers will have their back anyway. They just don't get told it from the conveyancers. They get it told by the agents just to let you know X, Y, Z's happened.
I'm mindful that there are going to be some agents out there loving you, give me a good old beating up on these
Am I giving you a beating up? Not really. I'm just being truthful.
Well, listen, I can take it. I'm a big boy. I can take it. Listen, I think that some of the criticism is valid, and I think that is some of the areas where lawyers, you know, could change their processes to, and something like a sort of weekly, bi-weekly call that's already hard.
Bi-weekly doesn't work.
That was my negotiating pitch there. It was, you know, could definitely help with certain things. We are also, by the way, of course, and one thing that's not been mentioned, but lawyers in most conveyancing transactions have in effect got two clients because they are acting for the lender as well. And the lenders recently, we've seen, who was it when it came to apartments in the last couple of weeks, has introduced some or leasehold properties, introduced some ridiculous requirement to the lease, which is really sort of is going to.
Are they on the deed of variation to the actual lease?
Yeah, they're requiring it on any property. I can't remember which of the banks is doing that. I'm not going to speculate, but one of them is wanting a variation to the lease, which is fine. But sometimes tracking these landlords down is impossible.
Look at that deed of variation.
Go on.
Right, so I've got one again on Hawkshard where I've got all the deed of variations from 3 I've sold previously. So we've got a young first-time buyer buying this property.
Yes.
The solicitor's saying, I want the deed of variation. Oh, it's great. Look, here you go. This is the deed that we did with the flat below. This is who you got to speak to, and they all go. And the managing agents go, oh, it's 500 quid, thank you, before I even get out of bed. It's all that. Everybody wants a piece, and that's what drives me mad. Because the client's the one who suffers. Getting back to the conveyancers acting for the lender and your client.
Yes.
But ultimately, your client is your client.
That's true.
The lender isn't going to be the one sat there thinking, are we moving next week? Or I wonder what they're waiting for. They're not, are they? It's not. They don't care. It's a transaction when you're a building society or a lender. It's somebody's life, the other end.
No, that's that. I mean, and I think that perspective can never be lost, really.
But it is lost. But it is lost. Maybe not to you, maybe to these factory conveyancers.
Yeah, I would still like to think that for the most part that anyone has dealt with the solicitors and the conveyancers that we've got at Anson's will say that the personal service is there, and it's a positive experience. But what I do acknowledge is that there's no getting away from a fact for multiple different reasons, and would accept that lawyers are part of the issue. It's taking longer, and we need to get it sped. We need to speed it up so that it's a far less stressful process. Because, as you're quite right, it's one thing for a process to take 3 or 4 months. When it starts to move to 5 and 6 months, half a year out of your life is
then
coming.
People change their mind. That's when you get people
start
saying,
to fall over.
Well,
Yeah,
it's not worth it.
And start having unreasonable. Unless this completes on Friday, I'm pulling out of the whole thing. Yeah, that's when
we have all that all the time, don't we? We all get it.
No, for sure.
But that's not them. That's just frustration. That's the fact that their life has had to be put on hold because somebody's asked for or hasn't asked for a mining search. I'm being pedantic, but you know what I'm saying.
I do. So, Angie, I'm really grateful for you coming on the podcast today, and then appreciate that you're denying this, but for giving me a bit of a hard time, which is what I enjoy too. And yeah, thank you for coming on.
Very welcome.